All right, Kevin Moore, the first thing I have to ask you is, before we even get started here, is we do Aliens and Dogman on this show, and I've seen, I think it was The American Werewolf in London, or a book I read, but somewhere along the line, somebody said, beware the Moors. Now, is that you and your family, and what the heck have you guys been up to? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Encounters USA with author Matthew Hines. If you're looking for alien incidents, Bigfoot brouhahas, or dogman dealings, we have the podcast interviews, field research, and field interviews you're gonna love. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and check us out on Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Encounters USA. Today, we have an amazing show. We have Kevin Moore from The Kevin Moore Show, and it's going to be a great podcast. We're going to be talking about the paranormal world. We're going to be talking about Kevin's podcast and what he does, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things that affect you as far as disclosure and what is happening in things like the secret space program that everybody's talking about. So it's going to be an amazing show. So Kevin Moore, welcome to Encounters USA.
Thank you, Michael, so much for having me on. Really appreciate you, giving me the time to talk about what I'm up to as well. So, yeah, thank you very much. Great to join you.
And you are quite welcome, and we're really honored to have you on here. Kevin, I've seen quite a few of your broadcasts, and you've really got a nice little format. You've really got a lot of nice things going on. And so for the people that listen to Encounters USA, I just like to introduce you to them and have them check you out, because you have a lot of really nice information. So today we're going to be kind of highlighting you and your podcast and some of the things that you've done. And we're going to be looking at some kind of interesting and almost bizarre things. So the first thing is, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my kind of career in this field started off at university. So I decided that I wanted to, get into broadcasting. I wanted a new career. And the career that I had prior to that was kind of crumbling under my feet. It was at that time of the crash in 2008. And I'd been listening to a lot of Art Bell, a lot of Alex Jones. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to reinvent myself, I may as well do something that I think I'm going to enjoy. So I decided to do a 3-year degree at Glamorgan University in Wales in the UK. And I ended that degree switching over from a radio to a television degree. And I'd started doing the talk show, The Kevin Moore Show, on about, I want to say I got on to about, I don't know if this figure's right, but it was over 12 or more radio stations. And from getting on to doing a pre-recorded talk show on a number of radio stations across the UK, I got into doing the TV version of it on Sky in the UK. And when that came to an end, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to keep this going on YouTube. So that's it in a nutshell. And I've kept it going. And there has been days when I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? This is it's been a struggle just to, keep it going, because, trying to make a living from doing these type of talk shows, it's difficult. There's so many more people doing this type of stuff nowadays. And, I guess where I saw myself going and where I am right now are two different timelines. Do you know what I mean? They're totally different now.
All right. So so when you started doing your shows in the UK, you were doing paranormal stuff?
Yeah, mainly coast to coast. It was coast to coast that really inspired. What was Art Bell that inspired us? But I just, would go, see what guests were sort of trending on Coast to Coast, and we tried to interview them. And I did actually get to interview quite a number of different people in that field. And it did change a little bit, that we did more at one point when we were doing the TV show. It was more like real life inspirational shows. And I may one day get back to doing them, because I just got a bit burnt out with the paranormal, to be honest with you. But it won't leave me. It seems to be in my DNA right now to keep doing. But whether I do continue that in the years to come, who knows? Right now, I'm not doing many interviews in the paranormal. I've been releasing a docuseries on Channel, which I spent 2 years filming that docuseries across the world. And that's being released currently on my YouTube channel. And I've got another docuseries which I'm working on, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in this program. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now, busy with that, all those two.
Okay, well, I tell you, Kevin, I've Googled you, and I've checked out your podcast and whatever, and I find you just there are some people that are very interesting just to listen to, and I find you to be one of those people. And it does sound like you do have a serious enough background in podcasting that you could do a lot of things with this. But I have to ask you, when you seem like a smart guy, really intelligent. You were actually doing like television broadcasts. You're a UK celebrity. And my question was, in the paranormal, did you start to get kind of burned out with the topics, or were you getting burned out with maybe the personalities of the people that you were dealing with? And not to offend anybody, but let's be realistic.
Well, first of all, no, I'm not a UK celebrity. I've interviewed a few UK celebrities, actually, when I was doing the TV talk show. I've just kind of found my sort of platform on YouTube right now. Why was I getting burnt out for? Well, it doesn't, doing this work, it's kind of on the fringe in a sense, right? This is not mainstream YouTube content by any means, right? So the viewership figures were never, huge enough to sort of subsidize, to make it a full-time income. And but that has changed. I mean, as I've grown my channel, I've been able to support myself from it, and I'm very grateful for that. I guess that people don't realize there's a lot of work that goes into when you do the video show. I've never been one to want to just put out my podcast without editing. In a sense, we've had, issues going on, technical and everything else. It takes time to edit the whole files together, to do to take all the errors, problems out. I try not to cut the content out, but it all takes time. Do you know what I mean? To put it together. Other people may just want to put out as is, right, and that's fine. But I've never been one to do that. It's not how we were sort of taught to produce a final podcast neither. But I suppose the burnout as well was, I felt that there was a lot of, misinformation out there. I felt that those that were some of the bigger names in this field that I found their footing in this field were misleading a lot of people. There is, when we do our show, for example, we're not, going to go do reports and look into the individual or check them out. We have provided a platform where people can come on to and express whatever it is you want to talk about, right? And that's how it should be, right? But it's like any field. There's the good and there's the not so good, right? And there are good people in this field, of course there are. But I think a lot of people leave religion and get into the spiritual side, or have wherever they've come from, they kind of get into the spiritual stuff, but they kind of get into the conspiracy first sometimes, which I did, but not always. But sometimes when they get into that spiritual field, this is only my take on it, I feel there's a lot of teachers out there that have maybe had past lives in the church and they found their flock again, but in the spiritual community. Right. Mm-hmm. And, people's discernment is, people want to trust the host that's on there. They want to, when someone's got a large following, they trust that person has researched or knows what they're talking about, or wouldn't be putting information out there which isn't really that helpful. And I think people have to, people like us that are interviewing people, some of these people have, they haven't always done their homework. They're doing the best they can, some of these speakers out there, but some of them, there's a lot of ego involved. Let me just say that.
Yeah. And Kevin, that's great, because one of the reasons I really brought you on here was I've done over 50 podcasts of this now. And so it's really nice to have somebody to kind of be able to compare notes with, because you've been doing it for a long time. And I got into it kind of for the same reasons that you did. But I'd like to talk about all these topics that you're talking about. And what I want to touch on right now is, what is who is on your podcast? I do Aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogman. And who goes on the Kevin Moore Show?
Well, it's just anyone in the spiritual field, anyone that's a kind of a life coach, maybe, or God, it's the whole range. I mean, if you find them on Coast to Coast, I've also have interviewed some of them at some point. So anything in the paranormal, spiritual, best you can be. Mainly in that circle right now, but that may change. That may change after the docu-series that I'm about to put out in the not too distant future. So that's where I have been. Kind of a bit like yourself.
Well, one thing when you start talking about this like paranormal world, we did a podcast last week. I had Ron Moorhead and Carrie Cassidy on, and the topic of the podcast, or one of them, was that if you go into like the Bigfoot, and the demand for evidence is so great there, and when you get to the psychic, well, there's nobody asking for any evidence, or there's a lot of topics running around these days, and I don't want to step on any toes. We just do strictly aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogman. We don't do psychic things, and we're really looking for a more scientific approach. And my thing is once you get into psychic, you don't have, you can go anywhere with that, and you don't have to have any evidence. But do you think that attracts more people, or do you think it turns more people away?
No, I think,
and you have a large following.
Well, I don't think I do. I honestly don't think I do. My ex-partner, she was a big YouTuber, and she's on 1.5 million subscribers right now. So, she's always kind of like, when I see what she's up to, kept my ego in check. You know what I mean? So no, I would say, for me, a large subscriber following is, a couple of 100,000 or more plus. Well, probably even more, probably 400, 500,000. Okay. I'm grateful for what I've got. I'm not saying I'm not grateful, but I try to keep it in perspective, right? Of this macro that we're in. Yeah. But with the psychics, I've had many psychic readings, and some are good and some have not been so good, but the vast majority have been very, very helpful for myself. And I think, yes, you can't, you may say, well, where's the scientific validation for the whole psychic phenomena? But, if you're getting a reading from someone and, they're able to verify certain information, not all of it's going to be correct. Of course it's not. Probably about half of it, maybe sometimes, right? But if it gets you further, if it sort of pushes you or breaks whatever issue that you've got. I'm not, obviously no one psychic can help everyone, and not all psychics are able to help in all problems, right? But I've always found it useful. And that's why I've got the website channeling.com, which is going to be it's a psychic readers platform that tarot reader, mediumship, channeling, astrology, all sorts of stuff we're going to have on there. Right now, it's still not working at its best. We're just working on that site still, and I've not really pushed it too much. But, I was thinking that one of my future docu-series is maybe based on that subject. So, No, I mean, I think, if it works for you, if it's helpful for you, we're all adults. You don't have to, use a reader to help you out. But, if you choose to do so, that's fair enough. But there are cowboys in all this field, in the psychic phenomena, in the secret space program phenomena, in the paranormal. And there's also good people as well. But you get that in any trade. There's cowboy builders, there's good builders. Do you know what I mean? It's just this field obviously gets a bit more of a hammering because, it always has done. But hey, either watch it or don't. Make up your mind what feels right for you. But I think when information comes through from certain people in this field, whatever the subject is, and it's way out of this reality, this shared reality, that's when I've started to look at it and say, hang on, this is not part of a shared reality. What are these people trying to tell us? Is it useful? Is it helpful in any sense? Or is it just conspiracy porn? So, that's the way I look at it right now.
So where do you draw the line? I mean, if it's conspiracy, would you draw the line there?
Well, no. I mean, look, it's all entertainment in some respects as well,
okay.
Right? But at the same time, how helpful is it? I mean, what are they telling us? I mean, is it changing my life? Is it helping me with my relationship to myself even? Do you know what I mean? Is it helping me? What is it doing for me on a deeper level? And that's why kind of doing the challenge docuseries that I've done. There are nuggets of information in that docuseries, which is really, it's all about, you don't need anyone to channel for you. All answers lie within. And if you want to, hear a voice or hear your higher self, you can. You don't need anyone. It's nice to have someone to clean the house for you sometimes and do it for you, but you can clean the house yourself in a sense.
Kevin, can I don't want to dwell on this, but I really found this shocking that you said it, that your former girlfriend, you guys were doing the same thing, and she has 1.5 million.
She's a fitness YouTuber.
Aha, there it is right there. Well, boy, that,
she's Asia's biggest fitness YouTuber, yeah.
Well, doesn't that hurt? I mean, I don't want to rub it in, but breakups are hard. And no, it's not. No. You don't want any.
When we broke up, yes, I was devastated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, was there jealousy at the time when it was all happening? When I saw her explode and everything else? Of course it was. I was struggling at the time. Of course it was. But now I see it from a totally different perspective. She's doing what she's meant to do, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And my ego is in check enough to realize this is the field I'm in. You made that choice, and this is what's going to come of it. So
that is rough, though. I'm always the kind of person who, in most cases, if I'm not the instigator, and I'm happily married now, so it's not an issue anymore. But I was always the one to hope for a tragic accident or something. If it was where I was affected emotionally, so. I guess that's the kind of person I am. But it's nice to see that you are so well-rounded and centered. All right, Kevin. So let's talk a little bit about you have psychics on. What other kind of people or what other – I don't even know. What other fields do you look at in your podcast? What about remote viewing?
Oh, actually, yes, I've touched upon that. Yeah, I found that fascinating. I think out of some of the subjects, there's something that's really tangible about that can be repeated as well. I find that absolutely fascinating, remote viewing. Absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't had anyone on for a while on that, but when I have done, that is one of the subjects I always say that you could explore and really get something from it, and you can do it yourself as well.
Right. And that's where I want people to draw the line with me is I believe in remote viewing as long as it's done according to, the protocols that they've established. And it's absolutely fascinating. So I know psychics find people and they do all these things and whatever, but when you get into psychic, then you get into channeling, and I don't know where that stuff is coming from. So, and there's no way to test it. But with remote viewing, I mean, that's part of remote viewing, is it has to be testable, or people will, or you can't accept your results. So I look at a lot of my alien stuff and stuff off the planet as remote view from remote viewers. And if it's not from a credible remote viewer, I don't really care about it. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the channeling, I mean, look, I didn't put anything in the channeling docuseries where I talk about, well, how did I feel about this person? What did I get from it? I wanted people to make up their own mind. Of course, there were some channels that came on that I didn't resonate with at all, right? But, the majority of them, where they're talking about, okay, the age-old kind of stuff, love is the only answer, we are in control to a point, and many other fantastic stuff that was said. But the real grounded stuff, that's what I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And if that was helpful to people, that's helpful. But, when they start talking about, maybe other civilizations out there, and coming from, out of this, proof reality in a sense, or shared reality, well, I don't always resonate with that, but I mean, other people might, but it's not, I've changed my mind on so many things.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have Dr. Simeon Hein on next week. And have you ever interviewed him? Do you know who he is?
Yet. No.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll send him your way. He's fascinating. We went to both our WSU alum, and he does crop circles, and he went through the Farsight Institute. So he's up there for remote viewing, and he's got a PhD, and so he's very grounded. So I'm looking forward to the interview. He doesn't give me the answers I want as far as crop circles go, but yeah, he's going to be a fascinating individual. So yeah, I'll definitely send him your way if you'll, he's hard to track down, but anyway. So Kevin, let us move on. So we've got a really good idea about your podcast, and I just have to ask you, this is from one podcaster to another, and I've never had this. I've been lucky so far, but have you ever had to just say, okay, stop? I mean, you've done this a lot. So have you ever just had to say, all right, I can't air this?
Only that's only ever happened if I think I've let myself down as an interviewer. And that's rare, but, I've, about to get the person on and I've just changed my mind before I get them on, but no, never during the interview, thank God. But, there's been only a very few amount of times that's happened, either prior to the interview or just after.
Okay. All right. And, I have the same, philosophy. I think we all do. Is that, once you're on, then, you're okay to say whatever you want, as long as it's not offensive to people and, what racist or whatever, which thank God I haven't had anybody like that. But anyway, so let's change our topic a little bit, unless you want to add. I really wanted to focus on you and your show at the first part of this. So is there anything you want to add about your show at thekevinmoore.com?
I just think I'm about to go through a massive change again, to be honest with you.
Are you?
I think, I think everything's spiritual. There's no subject that isn't spiritual. I believe we're all here potentially as a soul having a human experience. I've said on other talk shows before, I don't really know much beyond that, right? I don't remember much beyond that. I could channel, and I have practiced channeling myself. I could channel some information that would be beyond what I can talk about right now, but I'm not even into doing that right now. So whatever we do, as long as it's coming from a sense of it's not harming anyone and it's helping others, then, knock yourself out, basically.
Yep. All right. So you're not going to clue us in on your changes? You're not going to tell us what's coming?
Well, part of that change is obviously topics and everything else. But I think, I may be starting part of my podcast, interviewing people in prison, and getting life stories and as such, and maybe moving towards, a bit more real life inspirational stories. I will always keep the spiritual side there, but, speaking to people that have, done things that are unimaginable for other people. What have they learned from that? What have they learned anything? Is there any compassion there? What is their sort of spiritual journey with being locked away for so many decades, for example? So it's just pondering right now. But I've got enough on my plate right now. But yeah, there's so many other things I could do, and I may go for a change at some point.
Okay, and hopefully you're not going there as a participant in the legal system, but just a visitor.
This would all be done over the phones,
like the cell phone.
Yeah,
get it.
No. All prisons have prison phone systems, and you're able to speak to people that way. So.
All right. Did you get that cell phone? You're in a cell when you're in prison, and
I guess
cell phone. Anyway, it was the best I could do on short notice. Right. After the interview, I'll probably have about 5. I'll have to email you. So, all right. Well, okay. So you're going to spend some time. You're going to call him. You're not going to actually go down to the Gray Bar Motel.
Well, I made it with some of them. Every state's got a different kind of system. California, I know that quite well right now. Obviously, with the docuseries that I'm doing, you can only interview them over the phone, but you can go see them in person. But you can't take any recorders in with you. So.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you this just to kind of spark a little interest in this topic. Now, are you looking at, for example, I've heard stories of people that could do out-of-body experience because they were locked up. And are you going to be looking for any of that, or?
I don't think most of the people that I'm going to be speaking to will potentially have those experiences. But I mean, the out-of-body experience. I mean, it's a fascinating subject, isn't it? And there's many famous people in our community that have had those experiences, and I've interviewed a few of them, and there's definitely something there. It's like the hypnosis. There's people in this field that have dedicated their lives to hypnosis. I know some people will feel that it's not tangible, but there's some interesting information that comes from that space.
Well, the only reason I even touched on that was I just had heard a story I'd read about it. Some guy locked up in Alcatraz claimed to have out-of-body experiences where he'd go to San Francisco at night, and he could tell you what was on each street, and et cetera, et cetera. So I thought maybe you might be looking into that. All right. Well, let's continue down our. I'm going to throw. I have this thing. It's kind of something that has gotten me a little bit concerned lately, and that is, I'm concerned about the secret space program that everybody seems to be talking about in the UFO community. And I just did a podcast where I talked about the question of, if we didn't go to the moon, how did they see aliens on the moon? And the whole gist of it was that if it's proof that we didn't go to the moon, then why are all these astronauts talking about seeing aliens on the moon? And that is because that would be a total disinformation campaign on top of a disinformation campaign. So I want to talk a little bit today with you, a paranormal podcaster, about some of the stuff that you've learned about this, and some of your opinions, which I highly respect, because I hear you saying the same things that I say and think, and you know how they say great minds think alike. So let's start with the first thing, and these are topics that you see on the internet, on YouTube. So the super soldier, what is it? Is it for real, or what's the deal?
I've been tucked away for 2 years making a new docuseries away from the Channeling docuseries, and I haven't, and probably not even interviewed and anyone to do with the super soldier program. I have no opinion on it.
Does it exist? Does it exist?
I wouldn't even know.
Okay.
I wouldn't even know, Matthew. I, you see, it's possible. It's possible that there was something, but maybe not what everyone's talking about, and maybe the whole word super soldier has been hijacked for something else. That's not really. Do you know what I mean? So Fifth Amendment on that one.
Okay. Now, the reason that we're talking about this at all is that I have this really. I'm convinced somebody's directing the discussion, and they even have a movie that you can see. I think it's on Amazon or whatever, but that the CIA has people that they send out to direct information flow about UFOs and aliens, and so I find this whole idea of a hoax moon landing, if that's the case, and I present a lot of really credible evidence with Rumsfeld and Kissinger and Alexander Haig as the chief witnesses that say it was all a hoax. So with that in mind, then why did the astronauts come out and talk about seeing UFOs on the moon? And then we get into the YouTube era, and we have all these topics we're talking about, like the secret space program. So here's another topic that, well, actually, Kevin, I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble, but is somebody directing the traffic? Is somebody directing the discussion? Have you seen that?
Well, that was talked about, wasn't it, back in the day with, was it J. Allen Hynek? Was there something that people have said that, that he was actually, well, didn't he come out to say he was misinforming people? There was someone that came out, wasn't there, that said that they had been misinforming the UFO community back in the day. And I cannot for the life of me remember the name. Do you remember the name?
No, but there's a movie where a guy is talking about that's what they did. They were part of the Central Intelligence Agency or FBI.
It's very possible, right? But when I look at some of the players out there, and I think to myself, some of the nonsense that they're talking, right? I honestly don't think it. I really stray away from the disinformation agents. I think they're just people taking advantage of people who will, just be easily led to believe what they're saying, mm-hmm. And it's nothing more than that. They just find themselves a niche that they can come into, and they enjoy what they're doing by misleading people because they think they're doing the right thing, or they whatever reason deep down mentally they've got for doing that. But is it mm-hmm. part of disinformation? Well, if it's good disinformation, we're never going to know, right? But I would say it's just people in our field at the top of the echelon who talk about these different subjects and we're giving groundbreaking information. They're just deluded. They're just misled. They're just doing it for all the wrong reasons, and they're not really helping anyone.
Okay. And I just want to clarify here. I absolutely think that there are UFOs, alien civilizations, et cetera, or I wouldn't be doing this channel. It's just the way that the topics are directed. And what is not only more important than if these topics are being directed, why are they being directed the way they are? What are we supposed to not think about that keeps them involved in the things that we're going to talk about? So we talked about the super soldier. A few years ago, there was a flash frozen Antarctic civilization. And just so I can kind of highlight what I'm talking about, they start talking about William Tompkins, right? Came out with his book, and then it seemed like there was a whole industry that grew up around a secret space program. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And when we're talking about putting out disinformation, I can put out disinformation. I can lie and I can say, oh, I saw a UFO outside my house, et cetera, et cetera. But why does somebody listen to like a Corey Good or a Wilcox or another person compared to me and my sighting, whether it's true or not? So my question is, who ordains these people, and for what reason?
Well, we haven't mentioned many names here. And of course, you've had your UFO experience. No one can take that away from you. It's like myself, right? Me and my family had a mass UFO sighting back in the day, right? I can't prove it. I can, the recollection between us all is foggy. I've got my take on what it was. But we really had it, right? But it means nothing. I mean, it's not really, I don't think, shaped the direction of my life at all, but I had it. Okay. But I'm not, going out there to talk about and, whatever. But other people who come out with such information, it's a tough one, isn't it? Where do you draw? Again, I go with this. If it's out of shared reality, is it? Why do we want to keep looking, above us? A lot of people think it's to do with that there's an agenda on us. I think we are we're our own worst enemy. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's always looking for an excuse not to take responsibility for any of our stuff and want to be saved by something else, mm-hmm. right? So yes, of course, there may be other civilizations out there. There may be some interaction going on, but it's nothing of what's being talked out there, right? Is there a suppressive government keeping information away? But of course there is in some sense, right? Mm-hmm. But you're never going to know the real truth. But I think you've just got to use a bit of discernment when it comes to some of the information. And every year is a year of disclosure, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's never happened. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime. And does it matter? What did it really matter? We've still got to get on with today. We've still got to make now count. I just think a lot of it's, mind candy and mental masturbation. Do you know what I mean?
Well, okay, so let's stay with disclosure, because what you're saying is absolutely right. Another industry, I mean, the word disclosure, that's what brings them to the conventions. That's what sells books. That's what gets people to watch on YouTube. So once they had disclosure, there wouldn't be any more reason to go to a conference, right? Oh, they've said it. There's no more secrets to go and listen to. But the fact is, as far as I'm concerned, they've already had disclosure as much as they're ever going to have.
Well, here's the thing. When you go to some of these conferences, some of the people with genuine stories never get the look in. It's always the people with the loudest mouth, or the ones that have the craziest stories, which are the ones that obviously draw the attention. I mean, the true, genuine disclosure, the true genuine cases, they're little and far between sometimes. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because we've all been to UFO conferences, and you do kind of get lost in that energy when you're there sometimes, right? I just think it's the fault of the conference, some of the conference organizers, where they do not give two shits on if a person's story is true or not. They don't care about discernment. There is some of these conference organizers are the real lost ones, who then attract a lot of people to come to some of these conferences, and are the reason that people get so misled from some of these bigger speakers that they put on.
Right. But okay, so here's my thing. The reason you get invited to a conference today is because your name is recognized in the UFO community. And when you go to the conference, it's people. I mean, I went to a MUFON meeting last week. They were talking about Roswell. Really, and everything they talked about, on my podcast, I could have, I was going, this is like listening to the seventh grade. We're talking about quantum physics on my show, and we're talking about evidence and DNA, and we're talking about physics and light and all this other stuff on my show, and they're talking about Roswell. I'm going, you got to be kidding.
I guess a lot of people. I guess it's for the newbies coming into the field. You know what I mean?
But and the people that are running it are ex-military. So I'm just going, wow, is this just to keep people from asking certain questions? Because it really looks like I could have stayed home and watched all this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's.
You could say.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say you could say that. Okay, so it's entry level stuff in some respects, but then what makes some of the bigger level information true? Do you know what I mean?
Well, after hearing, or if you watch my video and you see this documentary that I'm citing called "The Dark Side of the Moon," then you start to question: did Roswell happen? I mean, that was put out. Who put that out? The Central Intelligence Agency, not at the time, they didn't have it, but the intelligence agencies could have put that out. Kenneth Arnold, who saw what he saw, Maury Island. Now, I've done shows on all these things, so I've investigated it, and I find them all, as far as I know, I haven't done Roswell. I think that's just like a dead horse, but the ones I do, where I think they're legitimate, and because there's some kind of government involvement. But I seriously question the whole thing now, and I hope you'll get a chance sometime to watch that thing, because nobody's ever put that together. Is if we didn't go to the moon, how did they see aliens on the moon? So. Anyway, it's weird. All right, Kevin. So let me go down.
Let me just say this.
Go ahead.
Let me just say this. I remember interviewing. I met this guy at this conference, right, back a few years ago, and he had spoken to Buzz Aldrin, and when they were coming back into re-entry into Earth, there was a craft following them, and actually, it did follow them to the moon as well. And there was something different about this guy where he's on my channel actually. I don't know. He just seems so grounded. I don't know. It was a different type of interview than I've ever done before. But it wasn't, bells and whistles. Do you know what I mean? It was just something followed them there, something followed back. There was nothing more than that. There was nothing crazier than that. And that could be within a shared reality. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, that's great. Okay, I believe it, but. Buzz Aldrin told somebody this. This wasn't like the first-hand account. And what if, just for argument's sake, they told these guys, if you ever let this stuff out about what's really going on, we're going to kill you and your families. Not you, but we're going to kill you and your families. I'm just throwing that in there for argument's sake. And that's after seeing this documentary with Rumsfeld and Kissinger and these people saying we hired Kubrick to do it, and we killed the guys that were acting in it. So, or Nixon had them killed. So anyway, I'm very suspicious about all this after seeing that. And anyway. The last thing I'm going to say, and I don't want this to devolve into a moon hoax conspiracy thing, but what's his name? Gus Grissom, who died in the fire on the capsule. He was saying, how are we going to get to the moon if we can't even talk to the tower, right? And he was really pissed off about things. And so what if he was not going to shut up about it? What if he was going to blow the whistle on the whole thing? Well, of course they would have got rid of him. So anyway, I don't want to go into theories, but that's a good way to keep people quiet. If you tell the rest of them, well, you see what happened to that crew, so you guys are going to do what you're told. So there you go with there you go. So let's go back to that's the Apollo moon hoax, and not something that I really want to spend too much time with, except that it goes into the secret space program. So do you want to tell me what you know, what your thoughts are on the secret space program?
Well, obviously, the upcoming docu-series, which I'm releasing soon, is based on the secret space program. And having
so
made and making this docu-series right now, it's completely changed my mind on so many things. And what do I think of the secret space program? I honestly do not think it exists anywhere near what a lot of the big speakers talk about.
Okay, but Kevin, before you talk about the secret space program, what's your definition of a secret space program?
I would say it's probably, obviously we've got secret craft out there. There is that space military spacecraft which lands and refuels at different times of the year. They're cited by various newspaper outlets, and it's unmanned. So that would maybe be my way of classing part of a secret space program. There is a.
What about the William Tompkins? What about the William Tompkins secret space program?
Yeah. From what I've heard about William Tompkins, and not a lot, right? It just sounds way too far-fetched. Way too far-fetched for myself. Walking, I don't buy it. But then again, I've not looked into it too much. But then it's because of the docu-series that I'm doing right now. That's like, that's really like, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And, people hang their coats on tails on this guy. Do you know what I mean? William Tompkins. And I think it's just I think when people get together that are liars, I think it's like, oh gosh, look, his lies over there support my lies, and those lies over there support my lies. So, he's supporting my lies, so I'll support his lies. Do you know what I mean? And it's never talked about like that, but that's almost what it's like. You know what I mean?
Like a conspiracy, you mean?
Not even a conspiracy. It's just it's just easy to do that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And, and like you said, and I think I said earlier, after he came out, there was like a cottage industry. But before he came out with that, now your secret space program is, I've seen those things coming back and landing, and I'm not talking about that secret space program. What I'm talking about is there are, I believe William Tompkins said that there are these booster rockets, whatever, that were like 5 times the size of a Saturn V. The secret space program that says that they're building these planets or these football-sized craft that they're using out in space. I'm talking about the Gary McKinnon off Earth space officer. I'm talking about Solar Warden. I'm talking about going to that Buto planet. I can't remember the name of it. All that stuff. What about that secret space program?
Who knows what Gary McKinnon saw? He saw something. Yes, he hacked in. He saw something. But really, who knows what that was that he really saw? I mean, nothing can be proved. What Gary McKinnon, information is really linked to. But I mean, if you want to go there and say, well, it must be, then sure, it must be. But it may not be. Mm-hmm. And a football-sized craft from this planet. I can't, no. I mean, no. I just don't buy it. If it is in existence, it's not in my reality.
Mm-hmm. But it's there. It's out there on the internet, and it's really part of.
It may be out there on the internet, but
so it must be true.
It must be true. Absolutely, yeah, it must be true because I said so. It must be true.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your answers. They're a lot better than you get. One of the questions that I have, and I don't think that people understand, is I'm always looking for motivations for people to do these things. And when it comes to the astronauts, I mean, what would make you lie about this? Well, them threatening to kill your family. What's his face? Buzz Aldrin punched a guy in the face.
Yes,
Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
For saying they didn't go to the moon. Now, for me, it wasn't like, oh, you're insulting me, whatever. That looked like fear. That really looked like he's afraid of something. And you're going to say that about me? I'm going to, they'll kill me. What do you think? So anyway, I think, I don't know, but fear is a very big motivator, especially if you're worried about people that you love. Okay, so what about, and Kevin, I'm asking you this because you've been doing this for a while and you probably know more than I do. So Nazis and UFOs, what do you know about that? Is it for real, or what have you heard?
Well, again, it's not my forte. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I've interviewed people that have researched this, or they say they've researched it. And it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating. And you've only got to look at, a lot of the top, Nazi German scientists that were, brought over in, I believe it was Project Paperclip, back after the war. What did they really find? What were they really working on? Well, it makes fascinating movies, doesn't it? It's great for the movies to say that they were reverse engineering, crafts from out of our imagination. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there was never any. I don't believe there was ever any sort of smoking gun. Honestly, I don't even think about those type of things. If people want to come on to talk about them, and very few and far have on my show. But yeah, okay, well, it's interesting. But is it a truth, and what does it mean? I mean, there's many crazy people in our community that think that the Nazis have got bases, on other planets still, and that the Nazi regime continues. I mean, you've got to be. You speak to most people out of this community and ask them that, they would think, wow, she smoked some good stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, but then it goes back to what you were talking about, is that when you have real events, and then you can tie them in to your conspiracy. So, and I'm not saying that the Nazis didn't have UFO technology. I'm not saying that at all, because I think that's quite plausible. But from them having UFO technology to moving the whole operation down to Antarctica and then kicking our butts when we're down there, and Admiral Byrd made some off-the-cuff comments that started another whole industry about...
Of all the researchers in the UFO community, not one has ever got permission or ever stayed down there. I mean, I don't know of one that's actually boots on the ground and been there. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As part of a research team, I mean, I know there's people that say they've been there, but I'm talking about a documented visit there. No one has, and it's just it's a good bit of fun, isn't it, to have? But where's the proof?
Yeah. Well, and okay, so just from my own perspective, going back to remote viewing, I've seen the Far Sight remote view some a UFO down there, one or two. I'm not I think just one. It's not a flash frozen civilization. It's just one craft that seems to have been...
I could believe.
So, and they have 3 remote viewers doing the same target, all saying the same thing. Describing the same people in the facility, etc. So that's more credible. But I'm just trying to highlight the fact that you went from the Nazis maybe having UFOs, and then they've got there's a Nazi civilization in Antarctica, and then William Tompkins. Oh no, it's all over the galaxy, and according to him, Nazis are out fighting with the reptilians or something. And anyway, so it just doesn't seem to end. And I'm the kind of guy, I have a weird mind where I remember every conspiracy detail that's out of the norm. So I just always file this stuff away and until I find something else to glum onto it. So anyway, but that just seems to be the whole idea behind this secret space program, is that there really isn't one, and that's the big secret behind it.
Yeah, the big secret is there isn't one, or not on any of the level that we perceive. Do you know what I mean? It's so insignificant and small in some respects and it's so much more our technology, current technology, than some advanced civilization technology.
Okay. Now, Kevin, I want you to, you're working on a project now, and I would like you, if you like to, I know we're probably running short on time, but if you'd like to just spend a few minutes talking about what you're doing, because it really does, this is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the credibility of some of these ideas and stories that are floating out there about UFOs. And you've been involved in this project for a long time, so I'd like to give you just a few minutes to tell us how the project is going and when we're going to see some. I've seen some of your results, but tell us a little bit about your project and how it's going.
Yeah, so I'm currently filming a docuseries called, it's a number of, we haven't decided on a name yet, but it's based on the story of a whistleblower out there called Marc Richards. And he's pertaining to be a secret space program whistleblower who was framed for the murder of his friend, Richard Baldwin, on July 6, 1982. And he was framed for the reasons that he would never be able to talk about his work, or if he did talk about his work, he would never be a credible whistleblower. Now, no one really looked into that story too much. Not as much as what I've done right now. I came across this story from a guy called Jeffrey Reed. He had been looking at the story for a number of years. He had visited people in the same prison that Marc was at, and he knew of the story back as a kid. The story of Marc's endeavors back in 1982, and after meeting Jeff and looking at the online evidence that he shared with us, I came back to the UK because he was based out in Paradise at the time. And I realized, oh my God, there's a documentary here, because there is so much court case information here, so many old articles online. This would be a fascinating documentary. And it seems like actually this guy may be guilty of this crime. So after so much extensive research, meeting people that knew Marc back in the day, meeting the detectives that arrested Marc and put him away, meeting family members, so many different people, and meeting Marc's crime partner who he did the murder with back in the day as well. It is absolutely not true. Marc was part of this murder to kill his friend Richard Baldwin. He has defamed Richard Baldwin through other platforms that he's currently on right now that have made his name what it is right now. And had I not had any of the evidence, or not met these people and interviewed so many people in person that knew him back in the day, sat with the detectives who were like, look, this is how it happened. We were there. These other people saying something different. They weren't there. Do you know what I mean? It's just, this is the truth. Mm-hmm. He is guilty of the murder of his friend Richard Baldwin. He is not part of the secret space program. And people said, well, how can you prove that he wasn't? Well, because he never served in Vietnam, for one thing. We've got his D-214, which obviously came back as nothing, because there's nothing on file, not because it's been erased, but when you speak to the office that supplies that information, it's not there because it's not there, and because he never served. And we like we say, we know we've spoken to the colleges he served at the times when he was supposed to be in Vietnam.
Yeah.
We've spoken to,
well, Kevin, I'm gonna.
None of it's true.
Your documentary, the thing that you have now, your research is really, really impeccable. This is a horrible, I don't even like talking about it on my podcast, but it is part of this culture. and it is exactly what we're talking about. So my question is, where does he get? How did he get started feeding this information? And I really don't want to talk about any names here, because people that are involved here are my friends and that have helped me out a lot. So I don't want to get too far into that. But how does a person who's in prison for murder suddenly become a big key player in the secret space program?
Because the people who are surrounding him to want to put such information out are just as nuts as he is. Nuts to not want to see the true information. Mm-hmm. Nuts for giving a person who they've not checked out their platform to give a guy that won't even say sorry or even admit to being there. And what as long as they can bring viewing figures in for these people and give them something to do, which they enjoy doing this crap, with spreading this disinformation, they're happy as Larry. There's money involved. There's a house involved. There's platforms involved. There's a lot of things involved here, and it is a shining example of people who have large followings who will listen to the nth degree of what they're saying is true, and actually they are purposefully misleading people because they are so lost in their own mind of rubbish. To say that court cases are not valid and are just part of the system of lies, you know, it's scary. It's scary where the echelon people in this community are coming from. And not all other people who are big names will support this story, but it is a symptom, a disease. It's called UFO disease in this community. And this is the only murder that's in this community. And the people supporting it are just as sick as Marc to not want to come out of, well, there's so many reasons here. And we probably ain't got time to get into them all. I mean, I can't get into the psyche of these people, of why they don't want to see the evidence, see the truth, and go interview the people that I did. I only went on foot and interviewed people, right? And you know, they don't even want to see those interviews because it's just I'm obviously the lie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Kevin, okay, so there's a couple of things that you know. I know that there are people that are trying to push the story, and I still don't understand how you go from being in prison for murder to, I mean, did he contact people?
Why not? He was going to say, he back in the day was setting up a cult called Pendragon. He was going to take over Marin County. That's for sure. It would never have happened, but that's what he wanted to do. He was having meetings back in the day. I've spoke to the people. I've spoke to some of the boys that were there back in the day in these meetings. This, in their fantasy head, was really going to happen, right? The guy is, even in Marc's original interview with the police, he lied so many times on that interview. That interview was used as part of the court case against him, because it was just so obvious, you know. And how did he get involved in it? Because he always wanted to be King Arthur. He wanted his own Camelot. He wanted to be the king of Camelot. And you know, he is obviously, why not? Why not? If you've got life without the possibility of parole, right, which is what he's got, he's extinguished all his paroles, right? He's got no more, right? Then why not do this? If you're sick in the head, why not? Because you're going to, and it actually worked. His plan worked. He wasn't able to have his Camelot in the sense of being King Arthur in Marin County, but he was able to have his Camelot in another way. And it's better to be doing something like this for him than to not be doing it, because he loves the attention. He's a narcissist.
Mm-hmm. That is the weirdest story. I mean, having looked at the research you've done and the timeline that he purports to have done, all these things, I think it's just crazy. But I recommend people look at this this documentary that Kevin's done and keep track of. Kevin, now for me, just watching that, I really got. It really looked like Scientology, and I don't want to have those people coming after me, but it really looked like, you know, we have a truth that you don't, And even if your truth is so engrossed in based in facts, we're still not going to believe it. That was probably the most frightening thing. Now, as I said, I always look for motivations, and so the motivation is, I guess, to get a following, to get him out of prison. Is that what it is?
Not to get him out of not to get him out of prison. He's in there for life, but to give him something to do. I mean, he is like I say, he's a science fiction writer. He always has been, right? And if he can get a following on the outside, this is what he craves for, the attention. It's as simple as that. It's like the detective said to me when I sat in front of him. He's like, this is a very sick man. He said, you got to understand, when we arrested him, he could never even admit to the murder, even though we had all the evidence, and 12 jurors unanimously put him away, right? Because the evidence was so bloody strong, right? Of course he did the murder with Cross and Hoover. Otherwise they wouldn't have put him away, and they just shook their heads when they knew what he was doing now. But like they said, he's not breaking any laws, because, he can do what he wants. He's a lifer. Give him something to do. But, for anyone that's following him, this man, as the detective said, is a very dangerous man as well. They still class him as a dangerous man because he's still influencing people, even from prison, with this bullshit. And he was doing it back in the day when he did the murder of his friend, who was in his wedding photograph. Don't forget that. This was Dick was his good friend. And, he needed the money. Mark was deteriorating mentally. And, he killed him for the money. That's exactly what he did. Mr. Baldwin was not a paedophile. There was no child pornography found at his home, like the detective said to me. He's like, hang on. He's like, because they were laughing a bit when I was telling them about this. They were like, don't you think if there was child pornography at that house, that would have been in the court case? Use your brain. They were saying to me, wake up, stop being so stupid.
Yeah, and just the idea that that's a justification to kill somebody, that is just crazy.
Well, that's we all know who said that.
So
don't forget, he's a child porn, and someone's top researcher called Paul Collins was the one that had researched this information. And if someone's going to research disinformation, research and put misinformation out there, that's the worst thing they could do. But I actually did research Paul Collins. And that man, who is the researcher putting the information against me out there right now, and that man is actually wanted by the police right now. I spoke to, I'm not going to say where, but I spoke to a county where he's got so many criminal charges against him. But one of the counties I spoke to, there is still a 10-year case pending on him. And he's still wanted, this man. That's the top whistleblower. That's the criminal that's been looking to try to make the story out to be justified. And I've got most of his court cases right now as well. And it is him. It is Paul Collins. This is a wanted man. This is a man with, now it's okay. You can have criminal past backgrounds. That's fine. But, when you're putting misinformation out about Mr. Baldwin being a pedo, and it's being supported by the person who employed him to do it, fucking be careful. Because I spoke to Susan Baldwin, which is Richard Baldwin's only surviving family member, and she was so devastated that these people out there were giving Mark this platform after what he did to her brother. 37 years later, she's still devastated.
Well, Kevin, that brings up aren't you kind of, if this guy's got okay, so does he have a following? How big do you think his following is?
No, that's why the cops have only come on to the documentary with statements right now that they wouldn't come on because they were like, this man is influencing young people in prison. They're surrounding him. You've got to be careful because he's influenced all these other idiots around him to think that he's telling the truth. What if that was someone that was going to put a hit out on you or do something like that? You just got to be careful.
Wow.
To be honest, I didn't think about that at the time. It's too late now. Do you know what I mean? But
this is an old man. I mean, he's got to be in his 70s, right?
But he's surrounded by younger people as well. He's been surrounded by criminals for all his life. He's been in for 38 years almost, along with Cross and Hoover at a different prison. And Cross and his crime partner, who I've interviewed numerous times right now to get the story. He admits to doing the murder, but like he says, Mark was 6 foot away from him giving him the signal, saying, kill him, kill him, kill him. Kill him. Marc got into, Marc manipulated Crossing to do the murder. Marc, see, this is what they don't talk about. Marc brought the boat to dispose of his friend's body the night of the murder. Marc was sighted at the Marine by the security guard. Marc spent on Mr. Baldwin's credit card many days after the murder and drew 7K's worth of credit out on his name.
Yeah.
Marc was caught with paraphernalia and everything else, all these items from Mr. Baldwin as he was dumping them at the dump on the day that they were busted. And Marc's paw prints were lots of stuff as well. Marc was there. Again, we don't have the time to go into the details, but they're the facts. But don't talk about that, because that's, then no one wants to talk about that. He is who he is, of course. I'm just lying.
Well, I think there's a lot of issues here, Kevin, that we need to talk about. But the first one is your own safety. And, I just have to tell you that I was first presented with this like a year and a half ago. And I think you may have been starting to do a documentary. And the person that came to me, it really looked like, it made it sound like you were just doing kind of an attack job. And I couldn't understand why anybody would do that. And I wasn't presented with all of the evidence. And that really, it kind of upset me. And that was one of the reasons when I saw the truth, I thought, wow, I should probably say I'm sorry for, taking the stand that I did, but I was really not presented all the facts. And it really made it look like you were just out to get, this person. So, well,
it's just as crazy as that when she mentioned in that clip you're talking about, and I'll link the clip below in to know, so people know what we're talking about. So if you just go below show more, you'll see what we're talking about, right? But yeah, she was talking about that the guy called Jeffrey Reed was a CIA agent.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Well, look, Jeff was messing around. Jeff was really pissed off as I was, because she didn't want to see the evidence. She refused to see our evidence. She was calling us mind control and all this, and CIA agents and MI6 agents and all this rubbish, right? And he just got to a point of being really upset, and he just basically was saying, lied to her just to say, look, whatever he said about being a CIA agent, we're coming after you. It was just a stupid crackpot joke, right? And he was into that, right? But she takes it seriously, or purposely takes it seriously. When anyone with a bit of a left brain would know, no, that's just someone just joking around, right? She wouldn't listen, and if she says that we're attacking her, well, we're showing that. Well, we're showing the truth that I found, which is the only truth, which it's not two sides to a story in this case. It's just one side. Sometimes there are two sides. There is only one side to this story, and history happened. And if you want to erase that history and say it happened in a different way, that's not in a shared reality.
Yeah. Well, that just highlights what we're saying here, is that when I saw that thing on Facebook, that looked really serious, and it looked like somebody's after you, and what did you do? And anyway, but I was not really, besides that, which was, that was probably, it was inappropriate, but what's gone on with this guy is, to kill your best friend, and then to start to manipulate people.
We'll get this as well. If you're going to, and obviously she'll say, or they'll say, that the evidence shows that what we're saying is true and what I'm saying is false. But if you're just going to interview Marc only, just Marc, and that's going to be your research, how can that ever, in any normality, be normal? Yeah. What about the people that were there? What about that? Okay, they're just all liars, are they? Well, of course they're not. Anyone with a brain cell would, But the people in this field are just as damaged sometimes as those that easily follow along without thinking things through. I'm not, or the people in this field that give the information out are the ones that are damaged, and the other, and people wanting to, desperate for a new, for a bigger understanding of a bigger picture, just think that they are not damaged, and they are damaged. They are damaged because they've lost their ability to discern something just goes out the window. And it's sad.
Well, I just to come to her defense, and I know people either know what we're talking about or not. Is she's always been really good to me, and so I have no ill will, but I do think that because I'm talking about how are these stories planted? How do these things get in the mainstream, or if you call the UFO the mainstream? And this is exactly what we're talking about. If you're not going to look for facts and you're not going to question what people say, people can say whatever they want. And in this case, you're talking about or what seems to be a dangerous person, and as somehow inserted himself in the UFO community. So that is that's something that people have to be careful of when you're believing all these stories. And that's why I really try to stick to scientific, evidence-based encounters, et cetera, because this can get it to be a very dangerous undertaking.
This is a murder. This is a true murder of a guy that's not here anymore, because this gentleman, Marc, chose to take his life, along with Cross and Hoover. Now, Cross and Hoover is very sorry for what he's done. Marc has never, he's changed his story, hasn't he? He's gone from having lunch with his parents to then being off planet, to going back to having lunch with his parents, or I mean, it's just nonsense. His parents have passed away. He never said that back in any of these excuses back in the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kevin asked him back in the day, he would never. If you said to him back in the day, hey, what about this secret space program stuff, Marc? He would have been like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you crazy? That's what it would have been his thing then. But time, being in prison, he's come up with a new angle for his life, and I can't blame him for that.
Well, Kevin, have you ever offered to interview him? Have you ever asked him to interview?
Yeah, it was an absolute no, because I'd interviewed Cross and Hoover as crime partner first before him, as if that would matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Marc, I'll interview you if you want to do it.
He'll never come on by audio. He'll never come on by telephone. His wife's told me that because just for the nonsense that he can't talk about his case on the phone. But of course he can.
Yeah.
He wouldn't. He's got. If you start on prison phone lines talking about the secret space program stuff, that could damage, because they're lies. It could damage any chance he's ever got of getting out. If ever that comes out into the court system when he's trying to get out, very little chance of ever coming out, it would damage him, because it would show that he's lying about this now, just as he lied about the murder back in the day.
I'm sorry, but don't they already know about all this? About his secret?
He's never gone on the phone line to talk about it, because, yes, they would know about it through the letters. I'm sure with the exchange of fan mail that comes through, which is,
fan mail. Holy cow.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, what he's actually done is he's actually damaged himself for ever getting out right now. Now he could turn around and say, well, it's nothing to do with me. This other person who I've been talking to, she's one that's made all this up on my behalf. He could turn around and say that. I never said any of this stuff, because he's never come on the phone to say it. But yeah, I personally think he's damaged himself. But what do I know?
It is some crazy stuff. And, Kevin, I wanted to just touch on a few things, but I wanted to have a fun little podcast, and suddenly this got all serious, but it is, serious what we do. And I guess it kind of highlights the kind of people that we interview and the kind of information that we put out, because I mean, what if this guy starts putting out messages about you, whatever? Are you not concerned about that, or?
No, it's too late.
Okay.
It's too late now. Docuseries is going out no matter what.
Okay. All right. Well, Kevin, I think I've had you for more time than I was probably allotted, and it's really been nice talking to you. And I really do enjoy your podcast. I loved what you did. It was such a sad, really affair, but your work, the groundwork you did, and your investigation, I mean, that was first rate. So it left no doubt whatsoever. And I will tell you, I have a paranoid mind like most. And when I heard the story the first time, I said, it sounds plausible. of course, they framed him for murder because they're trying to shut him up because he was in the secret space program. And that was right when I started doing the podcast. But having done it for almost a year now, I'm a lot more skeptical. And I really have to thank you for doing that documentary because it opened my eyes. And, and of course, I didn't have a lot of nice feelings about yourself, but I do now. And I really like the work you're doing. And I like what you've done. So, Kevin, after this, will there be another? Are you you're gonna do your switcheroo on your show, but are you gonna any other plans, any more documentaries?
Well, let me just say this, that the docuseries is not finished yet. We haven't released the docuseries. All I've been doing is releasing updates on my channel. So the docuseries comes out later on this year. And that's right now you can just go to richardbaldwinmovie.com or cosmicconmen.com. And both websites will take you there. So this may be a Cosmic Comment series where this is the first one, the Marc Richards's, and there may be other documentaries which look into other stories soon after that one. I can pretty much say there will be.
Okay. Kevin, I have to ask you this. Do you think there's a cult? Is there a Camelot something? What do you think there's something bigger going on than even you know about? Are you looking into that?
It's possible. It's possible, but keeping it grounded.
Okay.
I'm just sticking by the facts.
All right.
So been right so far.
If you're going to be like that, sure. All right, Kevin. Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. You're a great guy. I love listening to you. And I guess I just have to say, as I always do, if you're with Kevin Moore and you're doing a documentary about people in the secret space program, or if you're out looking for Bigfoot or aliens, always watch your back. Thanks for joining us on Encounters USA. Remember, if you have comments, please leave them in the comment section on YouTube and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell while you're at it. Don't forget, if you'd like to be a guest on Encounters USA, just send us an email at encountersusa1@gmail.com and just put podcast guest in the subject line. Now, please remember that all of the guests' opinions on Encounters USA are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the podcast host nor the podcast sponsors. So thank you, and don't forget, when you're out in the woods looking for aliens, Bigfoot, or Dogman, always watch your back.